So we're rolling.
All right.
We're rolling. And okay, it gets 46 minutes. We got plenty of time.
Oh, plenty.
Plenty of time. Yeah, I think I'm hitting a wall progression-wise. Not even a wall in my ability, a wall in my mental. You know what I mean?
Like what?
Like scared to go heavier.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm struggling with that.
What worries you the most? Like, when you think of going heavier, like if someone says, "Hey, you should add a little weight to the bar," what is going? Is it fear of like pain or hurt, or
the form breaking down?
Yeah.
And then that causing the pain or the hurt.
Gotcha. Okay.
And especially since like I'm not just coming to be in good shape. Like I'm working towards something. I would hate to get hurt and then it sideline me for like 2 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be very frustrating.
Right.
So I got to get out of that.
The risk reward.
Yeah, Alex was beating me up last night about it.
Yeah. She's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a good coach.
She is.
She's a good coach.
Yeah.
Don't they agree?
Recently level 1 certified.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about progression?
Yep, let's talk about it.
Is that what we're going to title this? Progression?
I thought we would just title it as Overload.
Overload. Okay. So coming at you with overload. I don't know why.
Are you aggressively rubbing your belly?
I'm kind of glad I'm behind the camera because that got a little rough.
Even though I think you're an 8, you should be where I'm sitting.
No.
I think we should have the handsome guy ask or sit here. And you ask me and I'm off camera answering like I'm like the Wizard of Oz.
We'll have to do a poll for that because I think majority of the people are not going to want that at all. Once they realize who the guy behind the camera is and they put a face to that, they're not going to want them actually on the camera.
All right, new poll. Is Josh... I'm going to put it on the Facebook. I'm going to put it on the group page, the gym page. I'm like, is Josh... I'm just going to straight up, it's going to be a vote story on Instagram. Is Josh at least an 8 out of 10?
Oh my God. Put Big Josh, just so he freaks out.
Yeah. Tag him.
But, so we were talking about progression. What would you say your main things to progress? Like keys to progression. What are they? Right.
Okay, so there's a long list, and you can come up with a huge long list of like what you can actually progress when it comes to a gym, but we'll simplify it to 5 simple things that over time should be getting better. And you want progressive overload, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, like exactly why that should be happening. But you want progressive overload over time to make those compositional changes in your body, right? So if you're always doing the exact same thing at the exact same amounts, your body's going to adapt to that, and the input you're giving it is not going to be enough to stress the body to grow. And I use that term loosely because it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to grow. Progressive overload could be you progressively are eating a little less and less so that you're losing more and more weight. Right? So progressive doesn't necessarily mean to add to. It just means you are progressing in the direction of whatever direction you are headed. Right? So the different ways you can progressive overload is, number 1 is intensity. And intensity is just basically, to sum it up, how much weight are you lifting? Okay, so you are increasing the amount of weight that you're lifting, so therefore each rep you're doing is a higher intensity. All right, so if you did 10 reps at 70% of your max versus 10 reps at 60% of your max, that 10 reps at 70% is a higher intensity. All right, put that even in more layman's terms, if you usually do thrusters with an empty bar, but then you even add on a couple of 2.5s, right? Now your intensity has gone up with that small amount of weight you just added, right? So you increase the intensity of that movement. The next one is volume, right? And volume can be kind of tricky in a CrossFit class because it's not linear. You're not doing like, we don't come in one week and say, hey, we're doing 10 push-ups per round on this workout this week, and then next week we're going to do 12 because we're not doing the same exact workout every week. But over time, you can kind of gauge, all right, I usually do, you can easily do it with the strength work and say, okay, I usually do push-ups and I do sets of 10 but I do 4 of them on my knees and 6 of them off my knees. Well, now you want to try and do 7 off your knees and then the 3. So you're increasing the amount you're doing of the harder variation. So you're increasing the amount of reps you're doing. Or let's say you do AMRAPs and you try to do more reps in that same amount of time. So you're increasing the total volume of work that you're doing. Moving on from that, quality, so how you're moving. That's not one that requires you to necessarily add weight or anything like that, but you should be improving the way you move. So taking feedback on movement changes, improving how you move, because that in itself is a progressive overload. So if you fix how you're squatting and get better at squatting, that's going to lead to better compositional changes because now you're squatting correctly and those squats aren't going to have a negative impact on your joints. You're now moving better. You're going to do more squats. So that's going to help you with the intensity and the volume that you're doing. So the quality is very important. So learning how to move better. The quality is something that you should be hunting down every single day, whereas intensity and volume, you have to throttle back and forth every so once in a while. And good news is, if you follow CrossFit Bohica programming, the CrossFit Bohica programming itself takes care of the intensity and volume for you, right? The coaching helps you with the quality, along with your kind of self-realization of how you should be moving and really working on your moving and doing stuff like stretching helps with the quality. And then to build on that, you have density. Density is just you doing more work in the same amount of time. So you take, if you had someone in 10-minute AMRAP, they did 15 rounds, and then you had someone else do 4. That means the person who did 15 rounds had a higher density in that 10 minutes than someone who did 4. Now, it doesn't mean that necessarily the person who did 15 rounds had a better workout. There's a bunch of different factors that go into that, which is why it's always a good idea to not really compare all your scores to everyone else's in the gym, because everyone's kind of after something different, right? But density just kind of speaks to, okay, I want to make sure that I'm pushing it to try and get to a few more rounds in this workout. So maybe you do use a lighter weight in that point. Maybe you're someone who you struggle with using lighter weights and keeping on going all the time. So that might be something for you to mess with, right? And then lastly is just frequency. This is another one that if you follow our gym's programming, it kind of takes care of for you. You don't have to think about too much. But frequency is simply, if you want to get better at something, it's not necessarily that you need to do more of it on the single day that you're doing it, right? But let's pick something simple. If you want to get better at doing pull-ups or anything that involves pull-up strength, then it's probably a good idea to do a few on your kind of days off, right? And I'm not saying a lot, but maybe add in 5 to 10 strict pull-ups on your days off to add into that. So like our pull-up days are usually Tuesdays and Fridays. Maybe you do a couple extra on a Monday and a Saturday or Sunday so that you add the frequency, okay, of the amount of pull-ups you're doing. And that's an easy way to progress. So those 5 major points are the keys to progressive overload over time. And you want to always be working quality. So quality should always be at the forefront. But each day you come in, you should pick intention and almost try to hit a single one of those and really build on that day. And you can do intensity, you can do volume, you can do density, right? You're always working quality, but you should be working on progressing those other ones, like maybe picking one a day and progressing those as you go.
I know a big thing, progressing, especially the cardio-wise, learning to read the machine. Like rows or bikes. Yeah. You know, if it was, we're doing it for calories. That's all I was looking at. That's all I was paying attention to. So it took me a while to like, okay, let me look at the RPMs. Yeah. Like if I'm holding steady 65 every time we're doing, 10 calories, 5 calories, whatever it may be. In a week, 2 weeks, let me hold it at 70.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a good way for me to kind of progress and constantly trying to overload myself on, the cardio stuff. Just learning how to read the machines. Yeah, no, the machines are a perfect way. I think machines are a perfect way for anyone to just learn what your average paces are. And don't get too hung up on the workouts never being the same, right? You don't need
the workouts to always be the exact same to kind of get a general idea of how fit you are on a machine, right? So if you're someone who, when you do a 500-meter row, which we do quite often in here, whether it's in a partner workout or whether it's on your own, we do 500s, we do 250s, something in that line, or we do like 20 calories, which is basically like 250 to 500. We do something like that pretty much every week, right? So you should be paying attention to, okay, this is my average pace when I do a 500, or when I row for 20 calories, this is what the calorie per hour, that's what that big number in the middle, that's what it's always saying when I row. So a good way to progress that would simply be, okay, when I do 20 calories, I'm going to try and make my average rower say like 950. And you don't even need to have exact numbers. Like if you're saying to yourself, oh, I usually see 8 to 850, right? You start just thinking about it, just in that general range. And then a couple months later, you're like, okay, now I'm seeing 950 to 1,000. Well, that's progressive overload. You've gotten better at that and you've progressed it over time, right? And the thing about progressive overload is it doesn't need to be this, okay, I'm rowing 20 calories in 40 seconds today, and then next week I need to row 20 calories in 38 seconds. Like, no, it's a slow over thing time, but it does need to be progressing in that way, right? It might be you do the next 10 workouts rowing at that same pace, but then on that 11th, you start ramping it up a little bit. Okay, it's kind of like finding a new speed, getting used to that speed, and then once you get used to that new speed, go a little bit faster. It's not like faster, 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 faster every time.
It's a good way to get hurt.
Yeah, because you can't go too fast.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why you should always have periods like we do where you have, days where you're not going as fast, or we have weeks where we're not squatting heavy every single week. We're kind of putting the throttle on you guys without you even knowing it sometimes. That keeps you healthy, that you're working out 52 weeks a year, however many times you like to work out, rather than you got to take 2 months off twice a year because you're developing like these hurts, these pains, right? Taking a week off every once in a while or 2 weeks off every once in a while isn't a horrible thing if you're consistent, but you shouldn't have to feel like you got to go through these stretches always taking like 2 or 3 months off just to get back to feeling normal.
Now, talking about progression, if you yourself, you're trying to progress, why should you be lifting weights to progress?
So if you were to ask me I think we might have mentioned this in another video, but the fastest way to change your body composition is to combine doing cardio of some sort and lifting weights. Now that can be you're lifting weights and then you're going and doing cardio, or you're lifting weights and then you're doing a typical CrossFit workout, which is kind of weights and cardio, but you need to be prioritizing both. The effects that lifting weights have on you at a physiological level, it's going to create proper hormone imbalance. It's going to help release hormones that should be that are beneficial to your overall health and your body composition. If someone actually told me honestly you can only pick one, you had to either lift weights or do cardio to be as healthy as possible, I would tell that person to lift weights, right? Because you're going to hit a threshold on cardio that you're not really going to hit in lifting weights, all right? And when it comes to lifting weights, the average person is not going to get like to this super bulky superhero looking person, anytime soon or ever. Like, so little of the population actually has the genetics for that. People don't realize it. Or that person you're seeing on the magazine or Instagram is actually on something, right? So you should be lifting weights because it's going to have the greatest impact compositionally. When I say composition, that means what your body's made up of and what it looks like and what you actually see. Like, it's going to have the greatest composition impact out of anything. Doing cardio is kind of like a little bit of a cherry on top, like putting a little whipped cream on the cake. All right, it's going to add to that fire that's burning. Okay, but cardio itself isn't going to get it done, but it does help as kind of like a little extra catalyst when it comes to changing your composition and getting healthier.
So now that we know you need to be lifting weights to progress.
Yeah.
The fitter you, the better you.
Right.
The you're trying to be. It's best for you to be lifting weights to get there.
Mm-hmm.
What about lifting heavier? Like adding weight to your lifts. Is that as important as just lifting in general?
So taking it back to progressive overload, you should be over time increasing those variables. And I would say even if you wanted to just simplify it, you don't even really have to think about density too much unless you're more competitive. And you really don't have to think about volume too much, like overanalyze it. Like you can keep it simple. Just think about it this way. If you're the average person just trying to get fit, trying to be healthy, trying to look good naked, over time, you should be lifting a little bit more weight. Over time, you should either be doing a few more reps when you lift that weight, or you should be increasing how often you're doing that. All right, so just to give you an example, here's an example of someone who could increase their frequency. They work out 2 times a week. Well, once they've done that and they feel pretty good working out 2 times a week, they start doing a 3rd time a week, right? Or someone who works out 4 and they're like, I want to increase that just a little bit. They start doing 5. And that's given that they're recovering fine and all that stuff, right? So that's an example of frequency. They should be increasing intensity over time or volume over time. So like an example of that is, hey, I always use 55 pounds with this X movement, power cleans, right? Well, over time, and it doesn't have to be like session after session, but after you've done power cleans with 55 for a few months, you need to start doing 60 and 65, right? Our strength progressions, we usually don't use hard percentages. We usually say things like, hey, go up to a heavy set of 5, heavy set of 3. We tell you to track those things because over time, you should see your average numbers be higher, right? We don't really run percentage-based stuff because not everyone shows up at the same time each week, right? And if we do percentage-based cycles and you miss a week, well, then you're behind a whole week and you can't really keep up with the next week because you got to do the percentages from last. It gets complicated, right? So we choose to better go by feel and just build up strength how you're feeling that day and capitalize on the days you feel good, right?
Now, hitting on that, I saw something good. I had to show 2 people this week how you can track your workouts. You don't have to go old school and put it in a notebook. You can if you want to. But where can you track your workouts? You
go on the Wodify when you check in. So everyone should be checking in on Wodify. And we'll probably make a separate video on this too. But go on to the Wodify. Make sure you sign in the class. All right? You can't sign into the class after the class is already happening. You'll have to do that through a computer. You can't do it on your phone after the class already started. But from there, you can add what you do that day. And you can even go back and add your weights that you've done previously under the Add tab or Add Results tab or something like that is on there. But you can track literally every major lift. And at the very minimum, just track the big lifts. Track deadlift, back squat, front squat, bench press, overhead press. If you just track those 5, well, you're going to be like 90% there because those are all good metrics to kind of gauge how your strength is progressing and how you're overloading over time. But to kind of roll back to what you're saying of why is it important to lift heavier over time, because your body will adapt pretty quickly to what you're doing, right? And there's no such thing as muscle confusion or anything. It's just your body reaches a point where it adapts to what it's doing, and you need to provide another stressor to continue making changes, right? So, and like I said, it doesn't need to be this grand, oh, I need to add 5 pounds to my bench press every week. That's not going to happen, okay? But you do need to be working towards lifting a little heavier over time, okay? So, and do it in a healthy way. Like, okay, I'm going to add 5 to 10 pounds to my bench press this year. Like, that's plenty reasonable. Or I'm going to add 5 to 10 pounds to my squat. It doesn't need to be this big, oh, I want to do 50 pounds heavier, All right, that's a whole nother conversation. But this is the get fit, get healthy, look better naked. Then you need to be progressing the weights over time, because that's the way you keep progress going. So many people, I see them get used to like, okay, I only do this 15-pound dumbbell for dumbbell snatches, and I never go up on kettlebell weight, and I always do these body weight movements. I don't, try to work to more push-ups or do harder push-ups, or, I always stick with this band when I do pull-ups. Well, you're going to get stuck to where you're kind of just basically doing cardio, because you're not progressing the weight side of it. So you're not getting the same energy output from those movements. You got to keep increasing the weight you're doing to get the same energy output. And this is especially true, not to call you ladies out, but I see it a lot with women who are afraid of getting bulky, which I can promise you don't have the hormones in your body to make that happen. So go crazy, keep on getting stronger. Strong is the new sexy. All right? You got to be progressing over time to keep on making progression over time. Like, it all correlates, which is the beautiful thing about CrossFit, is as long as your diet is pretty good in check, if you are progressing on things in the gym, so getting better at things in the gym, your composition is going to be headed in the direction that you want to see. So you kind of use all those metrics to fine tune where you're at and what you're doing.
Yeah, I could tell in the mirror as I'm progressing the workouts, the cardio numbers, the strength numbers, my body's progressing. The shape of my body's progressing along with that.
Right.
Obviously, I'm trying to eat clean, and the diet's part of it too. But that's a big one. Just like you said, not only are you progressing in the gym with your numbers, but if you're halfway eating decent, you'll see the progression in the mirror as well.
Yeah.
It's a great thing.
Yeah. And it's the thing that's lost in all of it is that is like a good constant discipline driver and motivation, is when you see changes, like you really work on doing better at pull-ups, and you take the back work seriously, or you take the shoulder press and the bench press, or even the squats and stuff like that seriously. You notice, like a good solid definition in your like mid back and things like that. Like, that's coming from that progressive overload, but that's motivation. And so then you do better in workouts. Well, then you do better in workouts and you look better. And then you're like, wow, that's motivation. Both those things just keep motivating back and forth. When you feel good about yourself is when you're going to perform better, right? So you just keep that constant motivation back and forth. I mean, that's why you need to, with reason, progress over time.
Now, this is my last one. I know I've asked you this before, and I've heard people in my go-to class, 6:30 p.m., shout out. I've heard a few people, we've had a few new people, I've heard them ask you this. If your goal is progressing with yourself, why are we doing certain movements, like the clean and the snatch, some of these higher technical movements?
Right.
Is that helping you progress?
So, when it comes to snatches and cleans, they're full body movements that require a lot of technique, coordination, accuracy of the body, teaches you body awareness, teaches you how to move your body quickly, right? So in our strength progressions, we have everyone do cleans and snatches. Now, we might scale that, okay, as in, instead of squat cleans and squat snatches, we might have people who are just there to, they don't really have a care for doing the snatch or the clean and progressing it necessarily. Then they'll just do a power variation where they don't do the squat, and they're just working on producing speed with their muscles, because that has carryover in progression to all your other movements, right? I like to think of snatches and cleans in a way as, and this is an exact correlation, right? But I like to think of snatches and cleans in a way as being a safer way of training like your body to be explosive, as compared to, hey, we're going to all go out and run sprints or do really tall box jumps, right? I think it's a little safer to teach you how to move the bar right. I think it feels really good when you learn how to move the bar right, or not even move it right, but like you get better at moving the weight. And it just has a benefit to your body awareness and teaching you how to move. Like if you can do a power snatch or a power clean and you can do it well and it looks good, then you're probably someone who's got good body awareness and you got good coordination. You've built and worked on your athletic ability. So And it's got carry over to all your other movements. Your other movements will become more athletic if you get more athletic with those 2 movements, right? And moving athletically is something that's going to carry you late into life, right? Some of the people who move the best later in life are people who move athletically, right? They're not afraid to remember how to produce force with their muscles, right? Do you have to snatch or clean to like be fit? No, not necessarily, but you do need to find something that causes you to have to move quickly and produce a lot of force in a short amount of time, I think, to hit all the corners of health and wellness, right? You know, like I liken it, I tell with our old folks class, I'm like, you know, if you trip and fall, you can't reach out and catch yourself in slow motion. You're going to have to move fast. So like we'll have them do stuff with the PVC pipe, but it's just teaching them to move fast, right? And so it carries over to the rest of their body. Now they move a little more agile. They have a little bit more body awareness and things like that. But that's why we also, when we're doing fast-paced workouts, we always have an option to do a different variation or a different movement in place of those higher rep technical movements. So, you know, if we're going to do snatches in the strength work where it's a little slower, everyone can take their time, be technically proficient, work on the form. We can adjust things as needed, right? Then when we say 3, 2, 1, go, and it's time to start that fast-paced workout, that CrossFit workout, we have different variations in our programming where it's like, okay, if you have no interest in doing snatches and cleans fast, well, we're going to do some kettlebell swings or dumbbell snatches, something that's a lot simpler, but still give you the same stimulus as the workout, right? But it's less to think about on the technical side. And those who want to do it can still do it. So that's why we break up our programming like that.
Makes sense. So, but the 2 movements overall, they'll help you progress in like body composition, fitness level, everything.
Right.
Because you're moving, you're teaching yourself how to be explosive and move fast.
Yeah.
Create a lot of force.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, and those things are imperative to carrying over to your other strength training properties, your other, like, you know, producing force with your body, getting tight through your whole core, understanding what it's like to be tight and move your body through space. So if you don't do snatches and cleans, which I'm not saying you have to do snatches and cleans to get that, but you should be doing something that is hitting that stimulus.
That was a lot of great information on progression and, you know, progressive overload and why you should do it, why you should keep adding weight. That's some good information.
Everybody want to get strong. Ain't no one want to lift no heavy ass weight. That's what Ronnie Coleman said.
I gotta start doing it myself. I gotta start chasing more numbers, man.
Yeah.
Adding more.
Slowly over time.
I know. I gotta do it.
Which you do, sort of. I mean, you know.
Somewhat. Yeah. Some things I'm like, you know, I'm like, I know I can do this one. It'll feel good.
Right.
I'll get uncomfortable.
But it's the small adds. Like, people think when I say, hey, add weight, that I'm going to give them some kind of crazy thing. But if you just add 5 pounds to your different movements every now and again, like we have 2.5s. People don't want to use 2.5s for some reason. I don't know what it is.
Ego?
Yeah. I guess. Right? Yeah. But they'll be like, yeah, I usually do the empty bar. Let me jump up to 55 or 65. I'm like,
whoa, killer.
Just jump up 5 pounds. Just see how that goes. Like, I don't want to put those small plates on the bar. I'm like, it's heavier than the bar.
True. Yeah.
Like,
you're overloaded.
I mean, you're overloading. You get a little better. Before you know it, you're going to be doing the 10-pound plate.
Yeah.
Right? You just push it.
And with the 10 pounds and you add 2.5s, eventually you'll get to 2 10s.
And it don't even have to be every workout. Right? Maybe like every 5th workout you do, you add the weight. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I'm just talking about like the condition, the CrossFit, like I don't want to call him out, but Brent, he comes at 4:30 in the afternoon. The other day he used 95 on thrusters. He was like, that sucked. But his form was pretty good. Like, I watched him do the workout. His form was pretty good throughout the whole workout. And it took him a little while. It took him longer than it probably would have if he did like 75, which I think he usually uses about 75 when he does thrusters. But he did 95 that day, and he did good. That doesn't mean he's got to do 95 all the time.
Yeah.
But maybe every once in a while he does 95 because that keeps his progression going up a little bit.
Eventually that just might be what he's comfortable doing.
Yeah, in 3 years, if he just stays consistent, then he's like, yeah, I always do 95.
That's his thruster weight.
Yeah.
For 10 reps, 20 reps, don't matter.
Right.
That's his thruster weight.
And you do get to a point with certain movements where you don't have to keep going up. Like, I mean, you will reach that point. Right? But I think most people aren't at that point, though.
No.
Like, you will reach the point where it's like, okay, doing thrusters with 115, 135 for your workouts is a little, like, it's not really much point in doing that. Right? But, I mean, you should be building up and then just gauging how you feel over time.
Makes sense.
Just add a little bit.
Progression.
Do a little 2.5.
Gotta do it.
Overload.
Gotta do it. Get that sip in.